how the thing delivers. All right, hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Portal Material. Now, we're going to take a step away from entries just for a second. We're going to return to discussing entries even more deeply and further labeling to the cycle. So when I talk about that, I mean more so, let me go to something like this. So I showcase this in one of the webinars, which is why you show up to the webinar. So you get to see this kind of, as we're doing it, and you get a little bit better. But ultimately, you're going to learn how to basically apply labels to the underlying cycle to decide if something is worth watching or not, and start to create a real watch list or a watch list of things to watch or not. Now, before we do that, we talk about labels and everything else. At this point, I think it's good to take a step back so we can actually discuss moving averages, understand moving averages, and then we can move into basically putting everything together. So what's really cool about the way that we did our information, what's really cool about the way that we basically did everything so far in terms of this portal material is that you basically have seen enough examples to understand everything you need about the interaction of price with the moving averages and how to actually make use of them, right? How are we using them for entries, for momentum MBs, accumulation MBs? How are we using them potentially across timeframes because of the EVC, right? What's happening? And you got to see examples or very surface level examples even from this like image here. Now, let's talk about moving averages themselves. What's actually happening there? Why are we using them? How are we using them? Basically everything moving average based. So let's do it right now. This is basically everything that I want you to understand about moving averages without making it too complex in any way. So a moving average, what is it? Okay, very simply, a moving average is nothing more than the average of price, no shit, over a period. That is it. There's nothing more to it. A moving average based on how, and there's many ways to calculate them in terms of how you apply the calculation. But for the most part, it takes a certain amount of bars based on the average you set, and it calculates the average for them and plots it as a line. That is it. Okay, so very simply, with this in mind, let's look at very quickly what that actually looks like so you just understand it. So if I simply go into the Mentific Structure Premium and I just remove everything except for the 10 right here, right? This black line, which acts as an EMA of a 10, so right here you have a few options. You have the SMA or EMA. The only difference is one is calculated exponentially. The other one is calculated linearly or simply. So simple just means they add them all up and divide them. Exponential just means that they take the ones that matter more, and then those have a bigger weight to the average, to the actual number. So that's like the mathematics behind it, but that's not really important. Personally, I'm using EMAs. I just prefer them after enough testing and doing this over and over and over again. EMAs is just my bread and butter. I love them. I use them. But I have seen people use SMAs, EMAs. I've seen people use everything. I've even used SMAs in the past myself, but with more and more evolution of my own trading, EMAs is what I fall into. So if I turn everything off, and we just have a 10 EMA plotted, all this thing is doing is it's showing you the average price over the last 10 candles. So ultimately, to plot this point right there, what it's doing, so this exact point where I'm pointing right now, to get that exact price of 147.54, all it's doing is it's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the last price bars and averaging them out through an exponential average and plotting it as so. So personally, I use a 5, a 10, and a 20. So on a given time frame, what's actually happening when I put these on like so, when I put these on, the 5, the 10, and the 20, and I have this set to a very light color, so you can do the same thing if you want on your charts, because I'm using the 5 to, I'll actually teach you guys why, but it's basically to ascertain where I'm in the trend, but I don't need it right there, like in my face, in my eyes. I don't need that necessarily. So all this means is that the reason the blue is almost always going to be above the rest in a bullish market is because it's quicker. If it's a 5, all it's doing is it's taking into account the most recent 5, which means when this is already bullish, it's always going to be bullish faster. If we then look at 10, because it's bullish a little bit slower, it's going to be below the blue, but there's the following 10. When you look at 20 of them, 20 candles, so from this candle, that would be this many candles. So this little red point right there, the actual line, that exact data point is calculated by using these last 20 candles calculated as an exponential through the exponential calculation. And that's how they get this point, right? So ultimately, that's all a moving average is, right? So I want to start this all off by understanding what a moving average represents, because the representation of it actually helps us understand how demand operates in the market, or supply, right? If the market is a selling market. But it helps us interact or understand basically what is creating these lines, right? And ultimately, what you need to remember is like, you can look up how these are calculated and you can do the calculations yourself, but it's much easier just to have the lines on there, right? And again, they tell you a story of what price is doing. And please remember this: the lines themselves, right, are created directly from the actual price of the given asset over X amount of bars. So we are still using underlying price to draw fundamental ideas about what the market is doing. And that's the starting fundamental playing field of utilizing moving averages. All you need to know right now is how they're actually calculated. What are these lines on your chart? And very simply, they are an average of price over a certain amount of candles. And that's ultimately it, right? And it can fluctuate. It goes up and down and up and down. When price goes up a lot, momentum cycle, when I want to trade, you can see what the moving averages do. They tend to start moving upwards. And well, yeah, that's really it, because we're going to get into the whole moving average thing right now as we go into the moving average section. So I'll see you all in the next video. Let's go.